Genji, despite being one of Overwatch's most popular heroes, is almost always never the ideal pick when it comes to a DPS hero. So in this video I'm going to talk about Genji's kit and what we could do to actually make him not suck. Now let's take a step back for a moment to before Season 9, before everyone got a health increase. Now Genji pre-Season 9 was a little on the weak side, but still alright if you could play him for the most part. But after Season 9 is when Genji went from a meh hero to a sorry I misclicked. Oh, my bad. The reason why Genji got worse after Season 9 was because Genji relies heavily on breakpoints to get most of his kills. Everyone getting a health increase just made it harder in general for Genji to get and secure kills. Now of course it's also harder for anyone else to get kills now as well, but other heroes are less affected compared to Genji. I say this because Genji tries to weave damage in before or they do almost anything. Like for example, right click then deflect, right click then dash, right click then dragon blade, and even right click before you eat your breakfast. Most other heroes don't really have to weave in damage when they can, because either they have the damage to kill someone or the combos to do it. Speaking about his shurikens, let's move on to that. I think Genji's shurikens need a damage buff. As it stands now, Genji's shurikens do 27 damage each, the lowest it has ever been. I think at the very least we need 28 damage shuriken. I'm on the fence about asking for 29 damage shuriken because 29 was on the border of being potentially too strong with most squishies. But with most squishies being 250 HP now, 29 might be okay. I've heard someone say 30, but that might be a bit much. The reason I want more damage with the shurikens is because a lot of the time I feel like Genji doesn't have enough damage with his shurikens to actually kill someone that is isolated from their team, when Genji's entire purpose is to dual isolated targets. Something else I would also like to see for Genji would be the spread on Genji's shuriken to be tightened or for the pattern to be changed. Hello, it is me from the future. We're going to disregard what I say about a new spread pattern because I found a big problem with it that's not worth getting into. So we're just going to say for this section, just make the spread a bit tighter for Genji's right click. That's it. Alright, on with the video. The reason why I want the right click spread looked at is because it is pretty common for you to land 2 out of 3 shurikens because the spread is so wide. I want to be able to land all 3 shurikens if my aim is on point. The last thing I want to bring up about shurikens before we move on is their projectile speed. I think it should be faster. I think the shurikens are way too slow. I know Genji is throwing these things so they probably won't be the fastest, but he is throwing them with a cybernetic arm. It would be nice if they at least made the shurikens the same speed as Zenyatta's orbs. I chose that speed because it feels like it's fast enough where you don't need to predict the enemy's movement at close range while still keeping the shurikens projectiles. I probably should have said this first, but the shurikens right now are so slow that sometimes you need to lead your shots despite being close to them already. And with faster projectiles, it eliminates the need to have to lead a shot at close range while still keeping them projectiles. Hello everyone, I found this kind of thing that happened in-game to kind of show you why Genji might need more damage on his shurikens, or even the tighter spread. Pretty much everything I've kind of talked about in this section of shurikens, and I'll kind of show you an in-game reason why I think we should have these changes. So we're going to start, and obviously you can see that, you know, this Genji is trying to poke at the Ashe right now. So you'll see that in a couple seconds he gets her to half HP, or she's half right here. You can see her right there, she's half. So Genji dashes in because why wouldn't you? This is literally like a free target. So he dashes in, but she's still alive. Like, look how low she is. Now obviously, you know, let's see, where is she? My bad. So she's like 38 HP. This is like, you could just melee her here and she would die, but obviously it's not super easy to tell at a glance exactly what their health pool is. Like, that's something that just comes with time. As you play more Genji, you kind of figure out about roughly where, you know, a kill can happen with just like a melee, or, you know, like a shuriken, one more shuriken blast and then a melee. You know, you'll eventually figure that out the more you play, but even if you're experienced, it's still a little hard to figure out, you know, how low this person is, because it's like right here you can't really see the health bar from his POV, at least at the moment. But we know from looking at her POV, she has 38 health, and if Genji just meleeed her here, she would have died. But like I said, Hard to find, hard to gauge with how fast you have to do things as Genji. So let's continue. So look, he even tries to melee her and he loses her here, which is, you know, it's fine because she coach gunned away. So even if you did track her, she coach gunned away from you. So now she is away from you, and she, you know, she's low enough that, you know, she should die here. So let's continue. So now look at this. She is so low that this should be a free kill for Genji. He should not have to work super hard for this. This should just she should die here for sure. But that happens. I don't know if that's a no reg or if that's just like, or like he wasn't close enough for either of those to hit, but somehow he manages to hit not her, which no shade to him. It happens sometimes because, you know, sometimes you get weird, like, it just happens. It just happens. So let's continue this fight. So honestly, these two people are both low, but Genji, being a duelist and specializing in being close quarters, or at least most of his kit does, should probably win this. And of course it's down to skill to a degree. Like, if the Ashe was like 10 times better, you know, then she would beat Genji, but at least as it stands now, just from the hero picks alone, you would assume that Genji probably has the upper hand here. And look at that. He hits another shuriken, like the right click shuriken, but she gets, I don't know how she survives. Honestly, she should have died there, but like I said, I think I know why, because of the shuriken spread. So let's see how low she gets hit with the right click. And let's see how low she ends up being. 10 health. 10 health is, like I said, she probably should have died here with just the 2 shurikens landing, but if I hazard a guess, she probably only got hit. She got hit with 2 and not 3. I went a little bit too far. So we're gonna go in free cam here, and we're gonna see how many shurikens hit her. We're gonna go 0.25 so we can catch this pretty easy. Look at that. You saw it right there. I'm pretty she only got hit with 2 out of the 3 shurikens. You see that right there is literally the replay showing you that she got hit with only 2 of 3 shurikens. And that's kind of just, you know, a problem with Genji's right click shuriken spread. Like, there's nothing Genji can really do about this because, you know, Ashe is a skinny hero. She has like a small hitbox, so it's harder to hit her in general, but you're having to work against, you know, the spread of your right click. Now you could say, oh, just get closer, but like, really, how much closer do you need to be? Like, this is already close enough. I shouldn't have to be smelling the hero I'm trying to kill just to like hit him with a right click. And let's even see his POV. Let's see where his reticle was for the most part. Like, if he's mostly on target, like, he probably should have hit all 3, which is just like, you know. So that green dot is my reticle, but like, let's see where this, there, see? He's basically on target, but this kind of addresses everything I'm saying. The spread is a little too wide. The shurikens are really slow. He missed the 3rd one because she just strafed out of the hitbox. Maybe she could have been hit by the 3rd one. I'll give it to you that. Maybe even if they were faster, she still would have dodged that 3rd one. But, you know, it's a little wacky. Just saying. So she's very skinny, already hard to hit. She gets hit with 2 out of the 3 shurikens, and the Genji can't do anything else apart from like maybe walking closer, but like I said, from this distance, I don't think I would need to get closer. It's already pretty close, and if anything, walking closer to your opponent not only makes it easier for you to shoot, or for you to hit your shurikens, but also makes it easier for them to hit their shots. So it's a double-edged sword. But, you know, obviously, like I said, maybe if he took the fight a bit better with his deflect, whatever, cooldown usage, but for the most part, this fight goes pretty alright, and kind of what, you know, what happens on average. And honestly, the Genji should have won this, at least in my opinion, because, you know, I don't know, maybe I'm Genji biased. It's very possible. I do play him a lot, but situations like these where like someone barely edges you out because either like you only hit 2 out of 3 shurikens, your spread is a little too wide, so you miss the third one. So having to throw another, shuriken blast to kill her. Obviously, you can melee her. Like you could throw your shuriken and then melee, but she is so low that really you probably shouldn't even really need to throw in a melee. Like this shuriken like right click alone should have probably killed her. You shouldn't have to like throw in extra damage in almost everything you do as this hero just to make sure that someone you're trying to kill dies. Like, I don't have to worry too much about whether or not like I'm hitting all of the shots I can, like for example, like on like McCree or Cassidy as he's called now. Like if I just land my shots, I know whoever I'm shooting at will die. But with Genji, if I land my shots, there's a very good possibility that I straight up just miss a shuriken and it makes me die because, all out of like the damage I could have hit her with, I end up dying because one missed because it's one too slow, the spread's a little too wide, or whatever. But as I said, there we go. Fight ends like this. He even tries to melee her here, and she's out of range just barely. And honestly, this whole fight is just kind of like, man, that's a tough, especially if you're playing Genji. But real quick, if Ashe here was 200 HP, this would have not been a problem. 27 damage shuriken is fine for 200 HP targets, but for 250, you kind of need a shuriken damage buff. Otherwise, you get weird niche situations like these. That granted, if the Genji played a little better, it might not have played out this way. But, it's just like, it wasn't like one side was significantly better than the other. She barely edged out the Genji in terms of getting an extra shot in. And like I said, for her, she at no point during this fight had to worry about, like, you don't have to worry as Ashe in this fight about not doing enough damage. You just have to worry about hitting your shots, where Genji has to worry about hitting his shots and not doing enough damage because one of them just misses. Well, that's where I'll call it. Anyway, on to the next section. Dash and deflect. I'm going to go over dash and deflect together since it will be really fast. Let's start with deflect. There's not really much to say about deflect. It gets the job done when you need it for the most part and is still useful for the most part to this day. For dash, it might need a slight buff, but it might be okay to leave it as is. But if I were to buff it, I would put it to 70 rather than 50 because when everyone was 200 HP, Swift Strike did 20 more damage than the quick melee. Whereas now the quick melee does 40, Swift Strike only does 10 more damage. So if Swift Strike should deal 20 more damage than the quick melee, it should now be 70. Sounds a little power creepy, but that's just what has to happen when you have a hero that heavily relies on breakpoints like Genji, and when you drastically change something so impactful like hero health pools. Dragon Blade. And the last thing we're going to talk about today is Genji's ultimate. Dragon Blade in its current iteration is really bad. In fact, most of the time I don't ever really want to use Dragon Blade a lot of the time because it feels like I won't be able to kill anybody with it, or it will get me killed, or both. Dragon Blade in the past actually felt worth using, and felt like you were getting a spike in power. It was an ultimate that you had to respect because you know that if Genji could execute well with his blade, something was going to happen. Current Blade is so bad that it feels like you're swinging on people with a green pool noodle. So what do? Well, I think Dragon Blade needs to be a consistent 2-tap, not a 3-tap, on most squishies like it currently does. We make Blade do 130 a swing instead of 110. You might say, why 130? Wouldn't 125 be fine? While 125 would be exactly the amount of damage we need, I want 130 so it makes it more likely that you will actually kill someone, even if they receive some random amount of healing. Like for example, Alari Pylon, Bap Shift, or Brig Inspire. Not to mention that if Blade were buffed to 130, you're still competing against Suzu, Lamp, and any movement ability, which are very common. You're probably thinking, wow, Nanoblade is scary with these numbers, and I agree. But that is a discussion for another time. But what I will say is that if Dragon Blade only becomes a problem after Genji is nanoed, is it a Genji problem or an Ana problem? I believe a hero's ultimate ability should be able to stand on its own 2 feet. They should probably change how Nano interacts with Dragon Blade, but like I said, that's a discussion for another time. I was considering adding in some survivability for Genji while he's blading in one of 2 ways. The first one being how they did it in the creator patch a while back, giving Genji some lifesteal on his blade. Or how they do it with Venture, where Venture gets some shield health when they pop their ult. Honestly though, I believe that Genji doesn't really need survivability while blading if he can actually kill things with Blade. You see, the whole problem of Genji needing survivability while blading comes from Genji having to swing 3 times on most squishies. So if Genji doesn't have to spend a lot of time on one kill, he can get in and out quicker and have less time being shot at. This problem will fix itself. But anyway, that's all I have to say about Genji and how we might fix him, or at least make him playable. But thanks for watching, and as always, have a wonderful morning, noon, or night. Goodbye.